Welcome to a new episode of 𝗖𝗄𝘁 Spotlight. I'm your host, Susan Choi. This week, we are talking about Foxtrot. What started in 2013 in Chicago as a promising alcohol and food delivery company ended in Chapter 7 bankruptcy in April of this year. All 33 of its locations closed across Chicago, Austin, Dallas, and Washington, D.C. And Foxtrot, sister business 𝗟𝗲𝘁 𝗀𝗃, and parent company 𝗟𝗏𝘁 Hospitality have since been dealing with a labor lawsuit. What went wrong? What can serve as lessons learned? And can Foxtrot rise again? To help me tackle these questions, I'd like to welcome Jonathan Lazarow, partner at Ambrose, Mills & Lazarow, a law firm specializing in corporate and intellectual property matters. Jonathan, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Susan. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's go back to April of this year. You know, as I mentioned in my intro, Foxtrot, it seems like such a promising company. It was, getting millions in VC funding, support, getting a lot of support. I remember in my research, reading about the positive response it was getting from, its locations in different cities. Jonathan, what happened here? What went wrong?
It's a difficult thing to answer. I think a variety of issues confronted 𝗟𝗏𝘁, which is a holding company for it. First, again, I wasn't there pre-merger, and I really wasn't there, post-bankruptcy, but a couple of things that stood out to me, both looking at publicly available data as well as being a participant, I suppose, in the public process of the sale of the business. First was, let's go back to the original merger between Foxtrot and 𝗟𝗏𝘁. Foxtrot was a great concept, right? A small format food, basically food, emporium with a restaurant component to it. Again, small format, trying to combine the best of what Starbucks had in terms of bringing people in and people staying and buying food and offering a whole bunch of product, whether it was prepared foods, whether it was branded CPG product, whether it was coffee. They were just trying to create an experience, small format, bunch of locations. I think that was compelling to investors. I think if they stayed on message, they probably could have built a national, a further national retail brand out of it. 𝗟𝗏𝘁 is the brainchild of Bob Mariano and others, obviously understood the grocery industry, and his concept was, let's combine a restaurant with a marketplace to it. Again, maybe like an 𝗟𝗏𝘁 or something like that, but more broadly defined. Again, interesting concept. Really good idea. Bring people in, have them here for breakfast, get them to stay and pull out their laptops and work all day, and then stay for a glass of wine after work. It was, I'd say post-COVID, co-work space experience for a different generation that didn't want a formal office. So I think there was a lot of interesting businesses. When they merged together, I don't know what the vision was. Was the idea that Mariano was going to be able to marry up his experience with a multinational, multi-state, multi-unit, large format retailer with these small format concepts? Was it addition by subtraction? Did they notice that internally that they wanted to, combine, resources from a merchandising standpoint? I don't really know. What was the debt structure look? What did it look like? What were the financial partners saying? The private equity funds, the capital behind it, the capital structure, the bank debt. A lot of that I just don't know. But what I can tell you is it looked like it was a failed merger between the two parties, that you had one concept going one way, one concept going another way, and they just tried to smash it together. One of the things that became clear to me when I looked into this was, I think Foxtrot didn't really know what it wanted to be. Didn't want to be a CPG brand. Didn't want to be a food business selling prepared foods. Didn't want to be a millennial or Gen Z focused small format, convenience store. It was kind of all over the place and couldn't really focus.
So, Jonathan, do you think, the fact that they weren't really focused in on who they were, do you think that was the main thing that, brought them down? I mean, what exactly do you think they could have done to avoid bankruptcy? Or do you think that was just kind of inevitable based on, the issues that they were having from what you saw?
I think there are a couple of things when it relates specifically to 𝗟𝗏𝘁, the combined entity. I think you got the blocking and tackling of retail, right? So when you looked at, and again, this information was publicly available in the bankruptcy filings, so none of it's proprietary. They were not my client. But when you take a look at it, the portfolio of stores, almost none of them made money. Okay, they were all money losers. Well, if your four-wall contribution is zero or losing money, it's really your cash burn is really high. And so the question for Foxtrot and Health Fox more generally is, what did they want to do and where did they want to go? Were they trying to create a profitable retail concept? It didn't really seem like it. And then the question is, did they even want to be in the retail business? Were they instead a CPG brand or trying to be a CPG brand? I think they went awry there as well. I think they had these really great local concepts, right? The Chicago flavored hot dog, potato chips. I think awesome concept. Love the idea behind it. That's a CPG brand. That's not necessarily the retail brand that Foxtrot was known for. There are 33, maybe 35 locations across the country. But again, are they trying to create their own brand? Are they trying to create their own unique, product that's unique to each of the communities that they're in? So something different in Chicago than would be in, say, Austin, which would be different than what you've got in Washington, D.C., different flavor profiles. Again, interesting idea, but it was half-baked to me. It wasn't like they had a really strong focus as to, were they a CPG brand? Were they trying to be best-in-class retail? I think Dom's had a stronger focus, but one of the things that I think really hurt their ability going forward is whether or not they were able to get flight, right? If you're losing money across all your retail locations, if you're losing money developing product, at some point you're going to have to flip the switch and get profitable. And I wonder if the merger was an idea to try to either get to break even or grow. And I don't think they ever got there. And then I think part of the thing that had happened behind the scenes, and what I know when you start really digging into the details, is the expectation was, we take this combined entity as a larger entity with a larger national presence. We now have what I think they perceive to be a more compelling story that they could then take to the capital markets, whether it's other private equity funds, whether it's venture funds, whether it's family offices, or other ways to get private placements to fund their growth. And I think that was the intention behind it. And I don't think it ever got there. So I think if you talk to senior executives at Outfox, the expectation was, we're going to go raise the capital now to really do this right. And I think what they had previously done is kind of raised it piecemeal, part way, every component was done partially, but none of it was done fully to the fullest extent to make sure they had enough money to get to growth. So when I work with clients from when I've been a principal investor, my first question is always, how much money do we need to get to liftoff? And if it's $50 million, it's $50 million. If it's $3 million, it's $3 million. But we know going into it what we need to do coming out the other end, as opposed to just rush. And I got the sense that with Foxtrot and out the merger and the combined entity Outfox, it was very much, let's get this together, then we'll solve the problem. And I think they just ran out of runway. They just weren't able, or jet fuel, or depending on the analogy you want to use, it just could never get liftoff. And that's unfortunately, I think, what happened is they ran out of cash. And I think their lack of focus, and I think putting together a team of really capable executives that came from large company experience probably hurt them. I can tell you as an investor, one of the questions I'd have is, what did that team's experience show in a startup or a new venture concept? So, obviously 𝗟𝗏𝘂𝗀 and the other founders, I understand they started the business. They have that built in. But when you build a team of people that come from national and global CPG businesses, they certainly know how to do things, but it's very easy. I don't want to say it's easy. It's really hard to create a successful product, but it's a lot easier when you're at a global player like a PepsiCo or a Coca-Cola, and you have, $100 million that you can play with, or even $30 million that you can play with, and know that if you lose it, it's not going to affect the bottom line. It's a lot more difficult when the difference between solvency and insolvency is $3 million, maybe even $10 million at most. So you have to be more careful. So I think that's ultimately what doomed them.
Well, we've been hearing reports that Foxtrot, I guess, wants to try again. There have been articles stating that, they want to, open 4 new locations in Chicago. What do you think about that, Jonathan? Do you think they have a shot?
Sure. The great thing about this country is, if you fail, you can fall down, pick yourself up, and get to try again. And absolutely think that Foxtrot has this opportunity to be successful. Look, I think the concept is a great idea, right? Whether it's Foxtrot or Dom's, it really doesn't matter. This idea of a small format kind of like an 𝗟𝗲𝘁 high-end convenience store that combines, a space where you could, have a coffee or a glass of wine, where you can have, lunch, and you can just sit there and get your work done. I mean, trust me, there are days that I would love to go to that place. I mean, the Foxtrot in Georgetown is a great location, and love to be able to get over there. I mean, it's closed now, but my point is still the same. I think there's a real opportunity for it. I think this time around they need to be really focused on what they want to be and how they want to get there. Now, I've not talked to anybody who's current, at the current reiteration of Foxtrot, but I think they have to decide: are we going to be in a retail concept? Are we going to be a CPG brand? And are we trying to create a spatial or branded experience, that we experience when we're in the physical space? I think you might be able to be two of those three. I think it's hard to be all three, but I think if they know what they're in the business of being, they'll be able to really tell a very tight story and a very good narrative. I think they could be really successful and hit a home run out of it. I'd be concerned, on the other hand, that from an equity standpoint, why did you get to try again when you failed the first time? But I don't think it was a failure of a bad idea. I think their concept was right. I think any concept that they were presenting, either of those, what I perceive to be, those experiences could work. I just want to see them really focus narrowly and really go deep and really do what they can to come out the other end and be successful. I'm rooting for them to be successful. It's a great brand and a great concept.
All right, Jonathan Lazarow, partner at Ambrose, Mills and Lazarow. Jonathan, thanks again for joining us and giving us those great insights.
No problem. Happy to do so. Thank you so much for having me, Susan.
And as always, you can check out more of our great content by clicking on this playlist. Till next time, I'm Susan Choi. Take care.